Today, we're going to talk about a man who, on the surface, seemed completely normal, maybe even gentle. But behind that mask, he was hiding one of the most monstrous personalities of the 20th century. This is the story of Edumund Kemp, a man who would become known as the Coed killer. So I want you to just picture this for a second. It's the early 1970s. You're in Santa Cruz, California. A car pulls over. The driver is this huge guy, almost 7 feet tall, but he has intelligent eyes and this soft, reassuring voice. Getting in that car feels safe, right? Well, for several young women, that exact choice was the very last one they ever made.
So the big question is, how does a person like this even come to exist? To really get a handle on the killer, you have to go all the way back to the beginning, to the making of the monster.
And this is really the central puzzle of Edumund Kemp. On one hand, you have this gentle giant. I mean, the guy was huge, 6'9", with a genius-level IQ and a calm, quiet way about him. But then, on the other hand, you have the awful reality. This was a man forged by horrific childhood abuse, just simmering with this unbelievable rage.
And where did all that rage come from? Well, you can trace it right back to his mother, Clarnell. She was an alcoholic who subjected him to just constant psychological and physical torture. She mocked his size, she called him a monster, and she would literally lock him in the basement like some kind of animal.
So after his parents split, the abuse just got worse. Then, at just 15 years old, after a pretty minor argument, he shot and killed his grandmother and then his grandfather when he came home. He was sent to a state hospital, but his high IQ allowed him to completely fool his doctors. And believe it or not, just 5 years later, they actually declared him cured and let him go.
But he wasn't cured, not even close. He was just a whole lot better at hiding the monster inside. And his release from that hospital? Well, that marks the beginning of a terrifying new chapter for the young women of Santa Cruz.
This is when the name the Coed killer starts showing up in the newspapers. A total phantom was preying on young female students who were hitchhiking, and the whole community was absolutely gripped by fear. And nobody, not a single person, suspected the quiet, gentle giant who they saw around town all the time.
And this is where it gets really chilling, because you see how smart and methodical he was. This was not chaotic violence. This guy was a calculated predator. He deliberately targeted hitchhikers to exploit their trust. He used a police scanner to avoid being caught, and he even rigged his car door so it was impossible to open from the inside. His car, that yellow Ford Galaxy, was basically a mobile prison.
And this is the real, tragic, human cost of his evil. These are the names of the young women he murdered. 6 lives, just full of promise, all cut short by the monster who was hiding in plain sight. So what was driving him? What was his motive? This quote from Kemp himself, it tells you everything you need to know. His murders weren't really about lust or even just violence. They were about possession. It was the only way his twisted mind could figure out how to have ultimate, total control over another person. But you see, even after 6 murders, that fire, that rage inside him, it hadn't gone out. Because in his mind, all of those horrific acts were just practice. Practice for the one murder he had been building up to his entire life. On April 20th, 1973, he went home. And he did the one thing he had always planned to do. He murdered his mother, Clarnell, the source of all his hate, while she was asleep in her bed.
And just listen to his own words about that moment. For him, this wasn't just another murder, this was his championship. This was the absolute peak of a lifetime of abuse and humiliation. In his mind, he had finally defeated the person who had created him, and, as he saw it, destroyed him.
So what happened next? Well, it was this bizarre, but in a twisted way, logical collapse. He'd done it. He'd achieved his life's one and only goal. He then killed his mother's friend so there'd be no witnesses, and then nothing. With his singular purpose gone, his life was completely empty. There was literally nothing left for him to do except surrender. So he just got in his car, drove for hundreds of miles, and then pulled over, found a payphone, and called the police on himself. He actually had to work to convince them that he was the real Coed killer. The reign of terror didn't end in some dramatic shootout. It ended with a phone call born out of pure, absolute emptiness. Now that he was finally caught, the world was about to get its first real look at the horrifying truth that was hiding behind the mask of the gentle giant. When they actually profiled him, what they found was just terrifying. A massive disconnect.
You have this genius-level IQ of 145, right, paired with an empathy score of 0. Absolutely 0. It's the classic textbook profile of a psychopath. He could intellectually understand everything he did, but he was completely incapable of feeling the horror of it.
And his own words just confirm this chilling reality. An interviewer asked him point blank, "Do you feel sorry for your victims?" And this was his honest-to-God response. He could think about their pain, he could imagine it, but the actual emotion, it was a complete and total blank.
So in the end, it all becomes crystal clear. Yeah, his actions were born from a childhood of unbelievable rage, but the murders themselves were about something else entirely. It was a desperate, horrific quest for power and control. By deciding who lived and who died, this man who had felt worthless his entire life could finally feel powerful.
And what about today? Well, he's serving a life sentence. He's actually been eligible for parole for years now. But here's the strangest part. In a moment of chilling self-awareness, he has refused every single hearing. He knows, probably better than anyone, that the monster he became is still in there, and he's convinced he'd kill again if he ever got out.
The story of Edmund Kemp is just this stark, terrifying warning that evil doesn't always show up with a scary face. Sometimes it wears a mask of complete normality, and it leaves all of us with a really unsettling question. How well do you truly know the people around you?